The battle in Bakhmut, part of the ongoing Ukraine war, has become the bloodiest and most significant engagement, resulting in massive casualties for Russia. Estimates suggest that this single battle alone has cost Russia around 100,000 casualties over the past 10 months. Despite the town's limited strategic importance, it has become a turning point in Russia's invasion of Ukraine. General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has highlighted Russia's failure in Bakhmut. Described as a slaughterfest by General Milley, the fighting in Bakhmut has seen a disproportionate number of Russian losses compared to Ukrainian forces, with some estimates indicating a ratio of 5-to-1. Conservative estimates put the dead and wounded Russians at 20,000 to 30,000, while higher estimates reach as high as 100,000. Although the exact number lies somewhere between these figures, it is clear that Russia is experiencing significantly higher casualties than Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky faced criticism for his refusal to withdraw Ukrainian troops from Bakhmut, despite the advice of his American advisors and domestic military and political figures. Bakhmut's strategic significance is limited, but the Ukrainian army has made it strategically important by inflicting heavy losses on Russian forces and transforming the town into a symbolic repository of fallen Russian soldiers. As we approach mid-May, the anticipated Ukrainian counteroffensive is expected to begin, and Zelensky's gamble in retaining control of Bakhmut has paid off. Ukrainian forces have worn down the Russian army significantly, particularly the notorious Wagner Group, which failed to capture the city. The failures in Bakhmut have caused internal conflicts between Wagner's Yevgeny Prigozhin and Russian Minister of Defense Sergei Shoigu. Reports indicate clashes between Russian and Wagner units as frustrations grew. Russia is now just 2 kilometers away from fully occupying the city, but Ukrainian forces have launched counterattacks, reclaiming territory and pushing back both Wagner and the Russian military. The battle for Bakhmut has diverted a substantial amount of Russian firepower, weakening their offensive capabilities in other areas. Over 10 months of fighting, Bakhmut has become a stronghold where the outnumbered Ukrainian military has effectively inflicted catastrophic losses on the Russian forces. Zelensky's refusal to withdraw troops from Bakhmut has yielded remarkable success, leading some to speculate that the American protests against his decision were a deliberate misdirection to encourage continued Russian attacks. General Mark Milley identifies problems with command, logistics, basic tactics, and troop training as the reasons behind Russia's failures in Bakhmut. The Russian military relies on an antiquated, top-down command structure reminiscent of the Soviet era. Corruption in the Putin era has eroded the military proficiency of Russian officers. The lack of non-commissioned officers, NCOs, is a critical flaw, as NCOs play a vital role in maintaining order, discipline, and efficient execution of orders. Russia's officer corps is insufficient to ensure training and discipline standards due to the scarcity of NCOs. The Russian military is notorious for its chaotic and abusive nature, with older recruits preying on younger ones. The absence of NCOs is particularly disastrous during battlefield operations. Russia impressed the world with its Zapad 2017 and 2021 exercises, showcasing its combined arms capabilities. However, these highly choreographed exercises were far from the reality of actual combat. The Russian military stumbled and made legendary blunders when it invaded Ukraine in February 2022. The absence of sufficient NCOs to ensure accurate execution of orders undermined Russia's ability to conduct complex combined arms maneuvers. The lack of discipline and motivation among Russian soldiers became evident once bullets started flying, highlighting the vital role NCOs play in maintaining discipline and ensuring effective performance under fire. Russia's insufficient number of NCOs has become a significant obstacle in its military operations. The situation deteriorated to the extent that Russia had to deploy senior officers directly in the trenches with their units, resulting in a catastrophic waste of resources and predictable outcomes. Among Russia's commissioned officers, including 14 generals, the rates of killed in action (KIA) have been astonishing. In the second week of May alone, Russia lost a commander and a colonel in Bakhmut while defending against Ukrainian counterattacks. This leaves key positions to be filled by even less experienced replacements, as it takes years of military education to become a competent senior officer. Adding to Russia's command challenges is the lack of a unified military force on their side. Instead, the Russian offensive consists of various factions. The largest is the Russian military, but the Wagner Private Military Company, PMC, also plays a significant role. Additionally, Gazprom, the state-owned oil company, and Sergei Shoigu's Patriot PMC have their own mercenary fighters involved. Syrian volunteers and Chechen forces, while successful on social media platforms like TikTok, have struggled in actual combat. Each faction operates with its own agenda and lacks the incentive to cooperate in achieving the overall goal of victory over Ukraine. While nominally under the command of the Russian Ministry of Defense, there is no truly unified command structure. This lack of unity is not merely due to incompetence, it is by design. Putin, like any dictator, fears potential threats from his subordinates, so he ensures they are motivated to oppose each other, preventing them from uniting against him. Putin employs Byzantine politics, fostering conflicts among the various arms of his government to protect his grip on power. The Minister of Defense holds a crucial position and has the potential to amass the resources to challenge Putin's authority, being in command of the entire Russian military. That's why Putin selected Sergei Shoigu for the role. Shoigu, a Kremlin outsider from a politically unimportant family, lacks ties to the national elites, making him reliant on Putin for his power. Similarly, Putin chose Yevgeny Prigozhin to lead the Wagner PMC, which serves as a direct arm of the Russian government while maintaining plausible deniability. Although mercenary companies are illegal in Russia, Wagner PMC is not only the largest operating PMC but also enjoys significant support from the Russian government, even situating its facilities on Russian military bases. While technically illegal, Putin can halt Wagner's operations at any time. However, his decision to empower Prigozhin and build this unofficial extension of Russian power was deliberate. Prigozhin, also a Kremlin outsider, has a criminal background and few connections among the Russian elites, making him a safe choice to lead a shadowy and heavily armed organization that could potentially threaten Putin's rule. Putin has skillfully pitted Prigozhin against Shoigu, ensuring that the heads of Russia's best-equipped military forces harbor such strong animosity that cooperation is impossible. However, this rivalry has escalated to the point where it directly sabotages victory in Bakhmut and elsewhere. Prigozhin has publicly accused the Russian Ministry of Defense of deliberately cutting off supplies to Wagner. In May, just as Wagner pushed Ukraine's defenses to the brink in Bakhmut, supplies mysteriously ran out. Simultaneously, regular Russian military forces on the flanks attempted to advance and fully encircle the city. It is evident that Shoigu was making a play for Bakhmut, aiming to claim the victory for himself and outmaneuver Wagner. Prigozhin was furious and launched social media rants directly targeting Shoigu and other senior military staff. He even threatened to withdraw Wagner from Bakhmut by May 10 unless the requested resupply was provided, prompting the defense ministry to warn Prigozhin that abandoning his positions would be treasonous. Eventually, Wagner received the requested supplies, only to have them denied 2 days later, leading to another outburst from Prigozhin. Shoigu provided Wagner with just enough to prevent them from leaving Bakhmut but not enough to complete the capture of the remaining 2 kilometers defended by Ukraine. Due to the lack of cooperation among the different factions within the Russian effort, it is challenging to work together effectively in the larger war effort, especially against a unified force like the Ukrainian military. However, it is outright sabotage that truly cripples the war effort. The rivalry and lack of coordination between factions, the stealing of glory, and supply manipulations have a direct impact on Russian casualties. Additionally, there are increasing reports of Wagner providing intelligence to the Ukrainians regarding the locations of senior Russian military officers who were subsequently targeted by Ukrainian strikes. Russia's logistics problem is nearly as crippling as its command problem. The Russian military's logistics have long been known to be flawed, similar to the logistical issues faced by the Soviet military. The Soviet Union anticipated fighting an apocalyptic war in Europe, where units would be exhausted in combat, resulting in few survivors requiring resupply. Thus, it was more cost-effective to replace exhausted units with fresh ones rather than establishing an extensive logistics network. While there may have been some truth to this during the Soviet era, modern Russia has not addressed these logistical shortcomings. The Russian units lack sufficient logistical support in terms of trucks and manpower. Compared to American units, Russian units have about half the logistics personnel and heavily rely on rail transportation for resupply. As units move farther from safe railheads, the logistics problem worsens as a small number of trucks undertake more trips over longer distances to transport supplies. This logistical vulnerability has made weapons like HIMARS crucial for Ukraine and explains their request for ATACMS from the United States. The deployment of ATACMS or similar weapons would allow Ukraine to push Russian logistics hubs further back, significantly impeding resupply efforts and limiting Russian combat operations. Ukraine recently received the Storm Shadow air and ground-launched cruise missile, partly fulfilling their wish for enhanced capabilities. Donated by the UK, the Storm Shadow missile enables precision strikes up to 350 miles (560 kilometers), depending on the variant. Its low observability provides greater survivability against Russian air defenses compared to alternatives like ATACMS, potentially making it a superior choice. Even without the threat posed by the Storm Shadow missile, Russian operations in Bakhmut were already encountering mounting difficulties. The entire Russian war effort faced an ammunition shortage. The challenges would only escalate as Russian logistics struggled to sustain the offensive. In summary, Russia's war effort in Bakhmut has been plagued by a lack of unified command, infighting among factions, logistical challenges, and sabotage. The absence of a cohesive force, along with internal rivalries, hampers cooperation and undermines the overall goal of victory over Ukraine. The clash between Prigozhin and Shoigu has reached a point where it directly hinders success in Bakhmut. Moreover, Russia's logistics have proven inadequate, and their logistical vulnerabilities exacerbate their command issues. The donation of the Storm Shadow missile to Ukraine adds to the mounting challenges faced by Russian operations.